Hi, I'm Michelle of Slovenska kuhinja, and welcome to my Slovenian kitchen. Today I have my beautiful mom, Mama Terezija, in the kitchen with me. She is going to be sharing with us a recipe so dear to my heart, Prekmurska Gibanica. Prekmurska Gibanica is an interesting combination between a cake and a pastry, and it's originally from the region of Prekmurje in Slovenia. And for centuries, this delicious dessert was served as a festive and ritual dish in Prekmurje. It has also been said that no wedding, or 𝘠𝘠𝘬𝑦, as we say in Prekmurje, would ever be held without a delicious gibanica. There are many different variations of making a Prekmurska Gibanica. My mom's recipe includes 10 layers, and these layers are composed of a delicious short crust pastry, poppy seed, walnut, cottage cheese, and apple filling, and then topped off with a phyllo dough. We are so excited. Let's get started. So we're just going to begin by measuring out the ingredients for our short crust pastry. We need to use our kitchen scales, and we're going to measure out 200 grams of sifted flour. And in that same bowl, we're going to be adding in 1 egg, 1 tablespoon of sugar, our butter. We're also going to be adding in 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a pinch of salt, and a package of vanilla sugar. And now we're just going to combine everything with our hands until we get a really nice soft dough. We don't want to overwork the dough, and add a little bit of flour if you feel that you need it. The dough will still be a little bit sticky, but we want to make sure that it remains nice and soft so we can achieve that perfect short crust pastry. And I love my square springform pan. If you don't have one or don't know where to buy one, not to worry, I will leave a link to it in the description box below this video. You're going to love this pan, and it makes for easy baking with some desserts, especially this gibanica. Okay, so now we're just going to butter the bottom of our baking pan. And then now we're going to roll out the pastry dough. Sometimes it helps rolling out the pastry dough between 2 pieces of saran wrap, whatever you find easier. And then we're just going to place it in the pan. You can use your hands, or sometimes using a small kitchen glass is also helpful just to roll it out if you don't have a small roller handy. Now this next step is so important. You're not going to want to miss this step. So we're going to grab a fork and we're going to pierce the pastry dough. Okay, now it's time to begin the filling. So we're going to start with our cottage cheese. We like using the pressed dry cottage cheese. It's normally found in the cheese or specialty cheese section. And because the cheese is a little bit more dry, we're going to be adding in a 1/4 cup of sour cream just to kind of soften it up a little bit and make it a little bit easier to spread when we're adding it to the gibanica. Then we're going to add in 1 package of vanilla sugar, as well as 4 tablespoons of sugar. And as you're mixing, if you notice that you need to add a little bit more sour cream to make sure that it's spreadable, you can do that at this time. And then once we're done, we set it aside. And now it's time to begin the poppy seed filling. So we need to measure out 300 grams of ground poppy seeds. And then we're also going to add in 3 tablespoons of sugar and zest from half a lemon. And then we're just going to combine it all together and then set it aside. Okay, 2 fillings down, 2 left to go. Now we're off to the walnut filling. So we need to measure out 300 grams of ground walnuts. And then we're going to be adding in 1 package of vanilla sugar and 3 tablespoons of sugar. And then, of course, no walnut filling is complete without some rum. So we like to use 𝘱𝘁 if we don't have the 𝘠𝘰𝘪𝘂 from Slovenia. We use 1 tablespoon of rum, and then we're going to combine it all together and set it aside. Last but certainly not least, the delicious apple filling. For this filling, we're going to be using 3 apples. We like using Granny Smith. Granny Smith is a nice tart apple, and it adds that perfect punch of flavor when we pair it with the walnut, poppy seed, and cottage cheese filling. One important step is to squeeze and strain out any juice that's left in these apples. And don't worry, this will not affect the dessert. We just want to make sure that it doesn't get all soggy during the baking process. Now we're going to add in 1 tablespoon of lemon zest, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, a couple of dashes of cinnamon, I say about maybe a teaspoon, and then we're going to add in 3 tablespoons of sugar and 1 package of vanilla sugar. Then we're just going to mix it all together. And those of you that like raisins, you can add a 1/4 cup of raisins that have been soaking in rum at this time. Okay, and once we're done combining and mixing it all together, we're just going to set it aside. Okay, now it's time to make the cream sauce. So we're going to need 200 grams of full-fat sour cream, 2 slightly beaten eggs, and then we're also going to be adding in 2 tablespoons of icing sugar. And then we're just going to mix it all up and set it aside. We are ready to begin layering our gibanica. So we are using a store-bought filo dough. And we're going to take the filo dough now and we're just going to place it on top of the bottom layer, which is the pastry crust. Then we have some melted butter. We're going to add about a tablespoon and then just brush it on top of the filo dough. And now we're going to start with our first filling. So with this step, we don't actually measure out half of the filling. We kind of just go by eye and we add as much or as little of the poppy seed filling as we like. So that is going to be our first layer. And then next we're going to be adding on a couple of tablespoons of the cream sauce that we made with the sour cream. And before we add our next layer of filo dough, we're going to drizzle on a little bit of melted butter. Using store-bought filo dough is so convenient, but it is important to kind of work quickly because the sheets do dry out very quickly. So you kind of want to, even if you want to keep them covered a little bit, that way they don't dry out as fast. And now we're just going to pierce the dough before we add on our cottage cheese filling. So again, we're just going to use half of the batch that we made, and then we're just going to gently spread it over top. So it'll be our second layer of this delicious gibanica. And now we're just going to drizzle on another couple of tablespoons of the cream sauce, as well as the melted butter. Okay, now we're going to pierce the dough again with a fork, and then we're going to start by adding our next layer, the delicious walnut filling. And then next, of course, the cream sauce and the melted butter. And we're just going to add on our next layer of filo dough. We're going to pierce the dough, and then we're going to be adding on our delicious grated apples. Okay, so now this is the only layer that we're not going to be adding the cream sauce onto. We're just going to be adding the melted butter. As it's cooking, we're going to get enough liquids coming from the apples, so we don't want to be encouraging any more moisture by adding the cream sauce. So then we're just going to pierce the dough, and then we're going to continue the same way we started, starting with the poppy seed layer first, and then cottage cheese, walnut, and then finishing off with the apples. And if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to my channel and click the little bell icon so you get a notification every time I post a new recipe. Whew, okay, so we did it. Now we're going to be adding on 2 layers of filo dough on top. In between each layer, we're going to add and brush on some melted butter. It looks perfect. So now we're just going to remove any of the excess dough that is hanging over the baking pan. And then we're just going to brush on some melted butter. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to spoon on some of the cream sauce before we place it into a 350-degree oven. Now, usually it takes about an hour. Every oven is different. This time we baked it, it was just over an hour. I always like to check up on it about 55 minutes or 50 minutes into baking just to see how it's going. Oh my goodness, it smells delicious. Look at the beautiful layers. I cannot wait to sink my teeth in and enjoy our first bite. Mummy, are you ready? Absolute perfection. If you enjoy watching my videos, please give me a great big thumbs up below. Subscribe to my channel and don't forget to hit the bell so you don't miss any new recipes. Thanks so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you again next time when I share another delicious recipe from my Slovenian kitchen. Until then, na zdravje and dober tek. Adio!